Every browser's default is black text on white background. Those are two colors already. You just didn't choose them. In this video, you will. CSS gives you two separate properties, color and background color. Color controls text, icons, and borders, while background color controls, well, background color. And since we already know how to use the color picker to change the color of any element, we are going to dive much deeper and understand exactly how background color and color works and what different kind of colors are available in CSS. And since we're developers, not designers, I'm going to show you the exact method I use to choose the color palettes for my website to make sure that my websites look beautiful and unique without having to dive deeper into design decisions. Now, even though we have already studied and used color multiple times, there are still several things that we are yet to know. First of all, we know that CSS has two properties. The first is color, the second one is background color. Both of these properties can take a color, and as we can guess already, the color one is going to change the color of our text. It also changes the color of our foreground. Let me explain that in a moment. It also changes the color of borders and it changes the color of icons. We haven't used either SVGs where foreground is reasonable or icons, but we do know that we can add borders to our text, and if we use the color property without specifying an explicit color for a border, the color is going to take over and give a border a color. On the other hand, the background color simply controls our background color. That's pretty simple already. We are going to test both of them out. Another thing that we need to know is that CSS has several different types of coloring systems. Just to name a few, we have RGB, we have RGBA, we have HSL, we have hex, and we also have OLKH, and we have others that aren't widely supported between browsers. We're going to study all of them and we shall understand why those are important. Let's launch VS Code and we're going to try that out ourselves. I am going to open a new file, name that colors.html. We're going to generate default format. Let's close all of this. I shall put in CSS colors. I'm going to add an h1 tag and I shall add something like CSS colors. Let's close all this and click go live. And we have a page ready. Now we are going to apply a color using the styles that we have learned already. I am going to add h1 and here I am going to specify color purple. And there we go. Now there are 140 different colors built into CSS that you can use just by specifying their name. All the common colors like maybe red, black, purple, blue, green, all of them are supported. But if we want to pick a different color, we would have to rely on a coloring system. And we have two major systems, namely RGB and hex. We have others, but we're going to stick with RGB and hex for now. So first of all, let me type in here RGB open bracket, and between those brackets I have to specify three numbers or red, green, blue. So let's type in 80, 70, 70. And what we're going to say is that we want to add about 80 prints of red, then 70 units of green, and then 70 more units of blue. And if I go back, it gives us a kind of brownish color. We can push it all the way to 255, and this means using the maximum red, green, and blue, and this gives us white. And here's something interesting, that if we're using colors in real life, if we're not talking about colors on computer screen, and instead we're maybe coloring on a paper, putting 255 on all three is going to be black, not white. And this is because on a computer screen, more color means more light. Therefore, if you continue increasing light, you're going to get opaque white when you reach the maximum. On the other hand, on paper, when we add more color, we're going to approach black. Therefore, when talking about RGB in computer programs, the coloring is flipped compared to real life. Now we have something else here called, I can just say RGBA, and it would give us another property, another value that we can pass in. Maybe that could be 0.5, and 0.5 basically means 50%. If we specify 0.8, that would mean 80%. So I'm going to specify 0.3 or 30%, and this is basically going to make our heading transparent. Let's go back, and as you can note, our heading is now much more subtle and much more transparent. If I specify 0.8 here, our heading is darker, and if I specify 1, this means full color, and we are not going to put in any transparency at all. The second type of colors that we're going to cover are hex codes. And basically, the way that hex code works is that I'm going to search for something called a decimal to hex converter. And if you've heard about binary, hex is pretty simple. It's almost the same thing except that you have numbers from 0 to 9 and then you have letters from A to F. So you can represent any number using 16 representations. Read upon number systems if you don't understand this. I'm not going to explain this in detail for now, but we are going to convert 80 into hex. Let's convert that, and we get 50. So what I can do is that I can put color, then I am going to type hash, and then I am going to type 50 because 80 converted to 50, we are going to use 50 here. Next we are going to convert 70, click convert, that became 46, so we are going to type 46, no need to separate it. And finally we are going to convert 70 again, which is again 46, and I am going to convert that too. Let's skip this one for now, and we can see a current color. If I save that, I am going to get the exact same color. Because I use the same numbers, I just converted them to hex and put them here followed by a hash. I can also convert this one, and let's simply look up how to convert 255, which is FF. I'm going to put FF here, go back, and there we go. Our color isn't changed at all. Now if I want to reduce my alpha, my transparency, I am going to convert another value like maybe 80. Let's convert that, we got 50 again. And now I am going to replace the last two letters which were my alpha or my transparency with 50. Let's go back, and we got a transparent color like before. So it might seem complicated, that's because it is. But put simply, you're going to convert all four values or all six values if you don't want transparency into hex code, and then you can just put them here followed by a hash. You just need to keep in mind, because you're going to see that pretty frequently in different code bases. This is the most common way to perform those colors. Now we can actually shorten it in some special cases. Let's consider that I have something like hash ffpbcc. Let's save that, and we got a pinkish color. Now I can actually shorten it, because those, as you can note, these two letters are same, these two letters are same, and these two letters are same. And when we have groups of such matching characters, then just shorten them and type them like this. And what CSS is going to do is that it's going to convert this F into two letters, this P into two letters, and this C into two letters. And this is a pretty neat shorthand, but just remember that it only works for three groups. You cannot, for example, make this CB and then put CB here and then expect it to work. It can work, it can actually work, but don't use it this way. Just stick with this, okay? So this is something that you just need to remember. You will never have to write hex codes manually, but just remember in case that you see that in a code base. Finally, we have two more systems which are a bit more complicated and a bit more modern. First of all, we have HSL, also known as hue, saturation, lightness. And if I try to explain this in the simplest possible method, hue here is the color that we're using. It basically defines whether a color is blue, whether it's red, whether it's something else. So I shall put in something random like 80. Next is saturation, and we basically, let's consider that 80 is blue. I don't remember what exactly is that, but just consider that it's blue. Saturation is basically the darkness of that blue color. If you have low saturation, maybe around 20%, you will have a light blue. If you push it all the way to 80%, you will have a dark blue. And finally, that lightness is your transparency again. If I increase the lightness to maybe around, let's try 20%, save, and this is going to give us a kind of transparent color. It's not exactly transparency, it's slightly more complicated, but for simplicity, let's consider that lightness. If I go with 80%, you can see that it appears transparent. It's much lighter, but it's not actually transparency, because we can do HSLA just like we did RGBA, and then actually pass our transparency, like for example 0.5, go back, and we have a more transparent color. Let's put in one again, and here we have a more transparent, sorry, a less transparent but lighter color. And let's reduce our lightness, save again, and here we have a darker color, but now I can reduce my transparency all the way to 0.2, save again, and we get something like this. Don't worry, I am just confusing you all, but just remember that HSLA is the more modern way of donating colors. It's the pattern you're going to see in more modern code bases. It's the pattern you will see designers use when they talk about coloring, but you don't have to worry much about it. We're never going to write those codes by hand. You just need to understand how they work. Finally, we have OLKH. Let me go back, and sorry, not OLKH, but OKLCH. Don't try to remember that. Here we have lightness, which is a percentage. We just saw that lightness was a percentage, so let's go with 70%. And we have chroma. Don't try to understand that, but let's put this as 0.4, and then put our hue as 80 again. Save, and this gives us kind of an orange color. This is where CSS is heading. You don't have to understand how that works. Just for simplicity, you can consider that this is a method of HSL where we just put lightness first, then we put a saturation, but it's called chroma here, and then finally we put our hue. So that's it. Don't worry, don't try to remember all this. Just go through the video once more if you feel confused, and I'm going to explain what we need to make up of all this. Finally, we have a page. We're going to style that using CSS and the idea for colors that we have learned already. Before we begin applying colors, let's reset it using the techniques we have learned already. I'm going to do margin 0, padding 0, and one more thing, not display, sorry, box sizing for the box. Again, don't worry about it. Now we are going to apply some margins before we begin. I shall begin with my H1. I am going to center that. Let's say font size 36 pixel. Text align center. We are going to add some margin and let's make that 16 pixel. That's fine by me. Let's add a P. We are going to add a margin of 12 pixel. That seems fine again. A line height of 1.6. Let's go back. That's pretty nice. And then I shall go with my UL and add a margin of another 12 pixel and then a padding of 8 pixel. Actually, we should increase the margin towards left, so let's make that 12 pixel. Just remember top right bottom left, so I shall make it top and bottom 12 pixel, and then left and right we're going to do 24 pixel, and that seems fine. Now for selecting our colors, we are going to use something called cooler, or just figure out how to pronounce that. I am going to open that. Let's verify that we're humans. Come on. So I just skipped the verification part. You know that I'm a human, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go with explode 10 million palettes, and it's going to give us a variety of different color palettes that we're going to use. And which one we're going to use depends on our objective. If we're maybe building a bakery or something, we can go with pink, we can go with bright colors, not this. We can go with this if we're making maybe a toy shop, but if we're making a business website, we want more sober and simpler colors, maybe something like this. For now, I shall stick with this. Let's pick this one. I'm going to click here. There are several colors here. Let's click this one to copy it. And I'm going to set body background color, and we need to put a hash before that. Let's go back and it gives us a pretty nice yellowish, I will say, background. I shall go with this. That would be a, let's make that a paragraph color. Again, put a hash before that. Let's go back. I don't think I copied it. Let's copy paste it again. Yep, that wasn't copied. I'm going to click this hex to copy it now. Let's paste that here. Go back, our paragraphs are in place. Next, we're going to use this one for a heading. Let's copy the hex code again, back to the heading, paste the color, and that's it. from here we can just decide that this is going to be a background color, this would be a headings color, this would be a paragraphs color. This one maybe we can use these two for links and buttons and so on. And all we need to do is to pick a palette, stick with it, and we're going to make a pretty nice looking page without having to do everything by ourselves. So that's pretty much it. I don't want you to understand everything that we discussed today. You already know how to use color and background color. So I just tried to dive deeper into more complex topics that would be helpful for us later on. So don't worry if you don't understand everything. We're just going to go ahead, and once we reach our project, everything is going to fall together.